So if everybody is going to grab the last cup of coffee, there's a lot of resound sound on this, but let's see. Grab your last cups of coffee, and we're going to start today with the announcement publication of the Contraception Atlas. Is the sound better now? No. Which is done by EPF, and I am very happy, together with a couple of colleagues, to be hosting this presentation. And why do we have a presentation of a contraception atlas? Why are we talking about contraception? Well, being able to decide over your own pregnancies and your sexual and reproductive health is an essential part of equality and of women's health. There has been a large campaign against, is called the anti-gender movement, against LGBTI rights and women's health in recent years. And I've often been saying to people talking to me about this that we have a silent majority in the European Parliament for sexual and reproductive health and women's rights and fundamental rights for the LGBTIQ community. But we need the silent majority to become much more vocal, because the minority that has been in this mandate has been very loud in the debates. They haven't won the votes, but they have been part of polarizing the debate that we've seen at a European level, but also at a national level and even a municipal level across many cities in Europe. We also have the aspect of women's health, even though contraception is not only a women's issue. It is very often women's bodies and people with wombs that are being looked at when we look at contraception. And there is a lack of research into women's health, and there is a lack of political focus on women's health, both regarding contraception but also fertility. You now have a drop in child rate, but the response by many political parties is not, let's make the conditions better for women's health, for women's lives. It is more of a, let's return back to traditional family roles, because we need to breed for Europe. We need to have sort of look at women as breeding machines and not as individuals with rights. And I think, therefore, it's very important to have this discussion about how we look at women's health and bringing that into the forefront. A lot of times we discuss health and sexual and reproductive rights. In Europe, it's said that health is a member state issue, which is very often claimed when we look at sexual and reproductive health and women's health. But funnily enough, if we're looking at cancer, then it's not a member state issue. Then we can have a committee on this in the European Parliament. Then we can have a commission policy. But generally, they are scared of touching women's health and sexual and reproductive health rights. And that is why it is so important to have an event such as today and to have an organization such as EPF. And since 2017, the EPF has been presenting this comparative house in the European Parliament to showcase, compare, and discuss the policies on contraception across Europe. The Atlas scores the whole European continent, also outside of the European Union, in the field of contraceptive supplies, counseling, and information. Overall, 3 criteria and 15 sub-criteria. And this presentation is done around Valentine's Day to remind ourselves that the occasion is not only an opportunity for companies to sell chocolates and flowers, but also a good moment to talk about sexual pleasure, women's empowerment, and bodily autonomy. Today in Europe, access to the highest standard of health should not be a matter of postal code lottery, but yet you see that access varies greatly from one country to another. WTO data tells us that we still face many barriers to tackle, such as limited choice of available contraception methods, limited access to services, particularly amongst the young, poorer, and unmarried people. There is a great fear of side effects and misinformation about side effects and how contraception works, cultural or religious opposition, poor quality of available services, users and providers' biases and gender barriers. Also, this year is special because we mark the 30th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development, which took place in Cairo in 1994. This agenda that was agreed back then was a milestone in reproductive health and rights, where 179 governments adopted a revolutionary program of action and called for women's reproductive health and rights to take center stage in national and global development efforts. And it also recognized that reproductive health and women's empowerment are intertwined and necessary for the advancement of society. And I think that agenda and also the Istanbul Convention are really key points in women's health and also reproductive rights. But we've seen backsliding ever since then. And we are trying to push back the anti-choice narrative that becomes even louder and the simplistic solutions to demographic challenges that I already mentioned in the beginning. And I am convinced that the European Union should take a critical role in ensuring that we keep the promises from 30 years ago and the agreements and become a leading continent on women's right, and that we stand firm against the backlash against the advances that we saw in the 90s and early 2000s. And I'm really pleased to welcome my colleagues and speakers today. We have two MEPs that are going to be here, but they also have parliamentary obligations of voting. So Ms. Malin Björk and Robert Biedron will be joining us, but will be popping in and out of the panel as they have other obligations outside. And then the long-term friend of this House and those of us working for equality and women's rights in the Parliament, Neil Datta, EPF Executive Director, who will present to us the map. And then our two experts who've made it from Spain, Cristina Puig, and from Poland, Antonina Lewandowska, will speak to us about the remaining challenges in terms of contraceptive access. And this event will be live streamed, and we are very happy to have our online audience, and I hope everything technical is going well. It is possible to ask questions in the room, but it is also possible to ask questions online, and the EPF team will make sure that the questions are brought to the panel. So with these introductory words, I would like to give the floor to Neil. Oh, sorry, no, we have quiz time, do we?
Yes, thank you, dear members of the European Parliament, dear colleagues, dear guests. We indeed have a quiz to make you think about contraception policy, to test your knowledge, and also to showcase some of the metrics that we are tracking with our atlas. And just in a few moments, I'll put a QR code on the screen. Well, first the Wi-Fi password, so you can all connect and have good reception. Then we're going to put a QR code for you to connect to an online environment. Maybe you've seen it before, menti.com. And we will have a short quiz with 6 questions to test your knowledge of contraception policy. So with that, just please give me one moment, and we are going to be up and running.
Yeah, and it's a quiz on our knowledge on contraception, and there will be prizes of both EPF merchandise and a little bit from the MEPs. So please take part, and one of the prizes is umbrellas, so make sure that you can get home dry and take part. Also, if you want to encourage and take part in the debate on social media and amongst the politicians running for the European elections, there is outside, you might have seen, there is a frame where you can take pictures of yourself, Contraception Atlas Media frame, and you can take the slogan that sort of suits you best. And so please take a photo of yourself with the atlas and use the tags that you like, either gender equality, hashtag parliamentarians for SRR, family planning, contraception for all, and have a look also at what the score for your country is, and give a shout out to your national politicians and make them improve things.
Okay, I take it that you had a chance to connect to the Wi-Fi. Now here is the QR code you can scan and to play, or alternatively, sorry, just one moment. We're gonna start here the quiz. Also, you can see if you go to menti.com, you can enter the code 49119337. So here's the code. And here's the QR code that you can scan as well. So I'm just jumping between the screens, but I hope it's okay. Right. All right, let's see how we're doing. We have, 30 players. That's a lot of people with, you know, a lot of knowledge of contraception policy, I certainly hope. 3 of them are going to get amazing gifts from, from EPF and from our host MEPs. And 41, please don't leave once you've joined, stay with us. Let's take 30 more seconds and we're going to put the show on the road. Okay, 49. 51, 53. All right. Anybody else? No? We're good? Okay. 52. Don't leave. 54. Okay, great. And in 3, 2, 1, we start with the first question. All right, who's in, is in, who's out? You can just see it for yourself. Okay, let's see. Answer fast to get more points. I hope people who are watching the translation could also do so. What is the most used form of contraception in Europe according to the United Nations? Is it the male condom, the pill, the IUD, or the implant? The most used. What would it be? Vote for the correct answer and we'll see it. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. It's 50-50, condom or the pill. It is the pill, even though condom does take honorary second place. So very close, good guess, but it's the pill. All right, let's go to the next question. 60 players, 61 players, 62, great, okay. Answer fast. Which of the below contraceptive methods is the most reliable according to the WHO? So the one that should be the most popular if people wanted to have the most reliable one. Is it male condoms, also the pill, spermicide, or an implant, which is a LARC? Which would be the most reliable, the lowest rate of failure? And it is the implant, correct, 33 answers, very good. I see lots of contraceptive knowledge in the room. Great. Okay, 66 players. We're growing with each question, that's great, I like seeing that. Okay. How many European countries provide free emergency contraception in the pharmacy? The morning after, the plan B. Is it none, 2, 5, or even 7? I don't know. Think of your country, think of your neighboring countries. Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? How much of a thing would that be, you think? Okay. In 5 countries, excellent. You have read the atlas. You have read the That's good. That's why we're here. It's working. Okay. Okay. And we're almost, sorry. Yeah. Let's get with the next question. How many European countries have excellent public websites about contraception? So what, where, how much? That was fast. Everyone has voted. 10 websites, yes. Okay, the same amount of people seems to have read the atlas. You're acing all the questions. Great, good guess. 22 countries. 22 people voted that only 10 countries have excellent websites on contraception, and that is indeed true. And we've been checking them very, very thoroughly. If your country has a great website on contraception, is not on the atlas, let us know. What makes a good contraceptive policy? Imagine if you were a member of parliament. Would you put reimbursement, accessible online information, free consultation on the bill, or is it all of the above? Could that possibly be the case? Okay. And it is indeed all of the above, 3 is the charm, reimbursement, accessible online information, free consultation. Coincidentally, also the thing we measure in the atlas. We think if you score well, you have a good contraception policy. All right, now here there are no wrong answers, but we would like to ask you, what would you ask from the incoming European Parliament on contraception policy? So as you know, we're having elections, and for MEPs who want to get re-elected, or for aspiring MEPs, what would be your message? Okay, are people already answering? I see, good. So let's wait for some responses. Okay, free access to contraception, prioritize women's health, put it on agenda. Yeah, first things first, let's first put it on agenda. Let's think pan-European. EU Women's Health Action Plan, I like it. SRHR policy, CAC, over-the-counter contraception, indeed. an important access requirement is not to need a paper to access what you need. Upward harmonization on contraception policies and information. Well, I think that person must already be working in the European Parliament. They know apparently a lot about how these things work. Okay, most free access prioritized. Well, a lot of great ideas, actually more than I can show. And I see people already started voting, free access standards. We're going to be making note here for our recommendations for the incoming legislature, and just to see what you all think, because you all care about contraception, obviously, so it's very, very good. Male contraception should be a better focus. Yeah, it's surprisingly not a thing, even though it does take two to tango, you could say. All right. And then we can just vote for some of the ideas that you like the most. I think they're all great. Again, there are no wrong answers, but just highlight, share the ones you think are the most effective. And okay, everybody has voted? No. Let's wait. Let's see the results at 11:50. Okay. 10 people voted. Oh, 11. Okay. 15, 17. Are we gonna have a quorum? Okay. 22. 22. Come on, you can do it. I've seen there were more of you. 25. Remember, there are going to be winners after this, even though that question we are not going to grade you on. Okay, 27, 29. Okay, it's 10 to 12. We are on a schedule 31. Let's get the last votes in, and let's see what we got. Okay, 34 people. That's good. 36. So, free access to contraception is a winner. And the second one is also free access, but also regardless of gender and age. So maybe male contraception, as some people suggested. Positive messages around sexual health and freedom. EU-wide Women's Health Action Plan. Increased education and info for LGBTI community, indeed. And just have it on the agenda. Great. All good ideas. Like I said, there is no wrong answers. And now we have our leaderboard. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, so Camille Luxembourg is the winner. You can find our colleagues to get your prize. The prize is over here. Okay, congratulations. Oh, okay. And the second, okay, and how do I? No.
Just say it.
I don't know.
Just say it.
So, the second winner is Dragonite.
Are they here?
Is Dragonite in the room? All right. Yes? Yeah. No? And we have Valentina on the second place. Okay. Good job. Amazing. So that does it for our presentation. Thank you very much. It was great having it with you. I honestly, I'm impressed. Like I said, good notes, good scores, and well played. And let's carry on with our program, which is, our Executive Director, Neil Datta, for European Parliamentary Forum. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Neil has been at the helm of the European Parliamentary Forum since 2004 and will present the results of the Contraception Policy Atlas that we were just quizzed on.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen, for hosting us today. It's really lovely to be here in the European Parliament, and thank you, Vlad, for a very dynamic little quiz. Congratulations to Camille from Luxembourg. I think it'll be a good day for Luxembourg, but no hints. So I'm really happy to be here with you to present, I think it's the 8th edition of the Atlas that we're presenting here in the European Parliament, the Contraceptive Policy Atlas. And I'll just take you through a little bit some preliminaries, then present the results for this year, and then some of the findings and recommendations that we have. Okay, so next slide. So here, just a little reminder about why it is that contraception is important, okay? I think given the results of the quiz, I think everyone in this room knows why it's important, except maybe one or two people who scored at the bottom. But first, effective contraception helps reduce unintended pregnancies. Fewer unintended pregnancies then results in fewer induced abortions, okay? And here in Europe, we have both the highest contraceptive prevalence rates in the world, and also the lowest abortion rates in the world. So compared to other regions of the world, Europe, we're doing quite well. But as we'll see, there's huge discrepancies, variations within the European continent, which shows that, that there's still much progress to be made. Next slide. Some of the progress that needs to be made is that even now in this region in Europe, it's 35% of all pregnancies which are unintended. So it's more than 1/3 of all pregnancies are unintended. And at the same time, it's less than 60% of women of reproductive age that are using modern contraception. So you can see there's still quite a bit of work to be done even in this region. Next slide. And here's something that my colleague Vlad pointed to during the quiz. There's a big discrepancy between what is the most popular forms of contraception that are being used by people around Europe and then the most effective types of contraception. Okay? The most popular ones tend to be the pill, the condom, and the IUD, the intrauterine device. You then contrast this with the most effective forms of contraception. You have implants, sterilization, both male and female, and then IUDs. At least IUDs fit in both categories. But so here we have a discrepancy between most popular and most effective. Okay, and also if we then consider that the pills and condoms, those are good means of contraception. But if you're a person who does not want to have a family for the next couple of months, if not years, then having a daily reminder to do something, and something which is prone to human failure may not be the most ideal choice for you. And then a long-acting reversible type of contraception may be a more suitable choice. Next slide. So here we come to what is the Atlas, okay? So the Atlas, and I think everyone, or at least most people here will be somewhat familiar with this. It's a map that scores 47 countries around Europe. This year we've added Israel. And it looks at government policies on access to contraception. So we're not taking a look at public health data. We're not taking a look at contraceptive prevalence rates. This is how a lot of medical professionals will tend to interpret this, but that's not what this is about. This is a heat map of policies. And we take a look at specifically 3 areas: access to contraceptive supplies, access to counseling, and then access to online information as a proxy for what governments are doing to communicate about this important issue. And there's 5 criteria, 17 sub-criteria. And this year, you'll see we've updated the rankings and also the scales for what constitutes good or bad, etc. Okay? Next slide. With this, we're guided by an expert group. Okay, so this expert group is composed of a number of different people. We have one member of the expert group here with us, and another, well, we have 2 members of the expert group with us. So, I'm afraid I can't read the slide up there, so that's why I'm sort of reading my own notes here. But so we have two members of the expert group with us, and you can see the expert group is quite diverse. We have politicians, experts in the field, young people, non-governmental organizations, private sector as well. So it's a very diverse group, and they're the ones that help us in determining what's more important. Is it access to supplies? Is it information? Is it counseling? And then how does this all fit together? Next slide. So here's a quick overview of all the different 3 main headings and then all the different sub-criteria that we're taking a look at. So as you can see, it's quite detailed, and each and every one has a different weight attached to that. Okay, so that's just a basic background about the Contraception Policy Atlas. And now, a small dramatic pause. We'll be showing you the new ranking for this year. Next slide, please. So this is the revised map of the Contraception Atlas for 2024. Okay. So you can see there's some changes here, okay? Unfortunately, Bad news. I'll start with the bad news. Bad news for Poland is still at the bottom of the list, but we're hoping that this will change, and there'll be some discussion about later on today. Okay, but this year we decided to group the different countries a bit differently. So we have Poland at one end, and then congratulations to Luxembourg, who won not only the quiz, but also the overall ranking for this year. So congratulations. And so what we're seeing here, and you can see this on the map, is that really there's a growing disparity within Europe, where on the one hand, we have a cluster of 4 champions doing very well on contraceptive policies. And those are really located in Western Europe. So we have Luxembourg, United Kingdom, France, and Belgium, who really stand out for excellent contraceptive policies. And then at the other extreme, we have to go further east, and there we find another cluster of very poor performing countries. And there we have Poland, Hungary, Turkey, Armenia, Russian Federation, and Cyprus. Now, with most of these countries, up until at least recently with Poland, they had something in common, which is also a backsliding of democracy, women's rights, sexual rights overall. Armenia has its own issues at the moment. I think we need to ask our friends in Cyprus what's happening there. And then the other, and for the rest of the countries, it looks like access to contraception and the policies for that is really a good proxy for what's happening overall in terms of human rights, democracy, and access to health in those countries. Okay. And then because we have this cluster of really well-performing countries and poor-performing countries, we had to revise the different overall criteria. So that's why you see that, or the ranking. So that's why you see that we've had to downgrade a number of countries to take into effect the very well-performing countries. So this is where you see that some countries which used to be light green last year, now they've been recategorized as yellow. We hope that this will be an incentive to improve the situation in the coming years. So next slide. So you can see there the different clusters of countries. So you have 4 really champion countries and 6 very poor performing countries. And then you have a big mass of countries in the middle. But special mention goes to the good countries. We have 10 of them. Then we have 13 medium countries, and then 7 poor countries, poor performing countries, and then 7 very poor performing countries. So you can see that there's a lot of room for improvement there. Next slide. So the best performing countries, as I said, Luxembourg, UK, France, Belgium, what do they have in common? So coverage schemes for adults within the national health systems, which include long-acting reversible contraception. Remember, that's the most effective type of contraception we were talking about earlier. We have special arrangements for young people and vulnerable groups. This has been something that's been happening over the past few years in Luxembourg, Belgium, France, etc. Ireland also went that same direction. Accessible free consultations, excellent government-supported websites. In a number of the different countries, if you're a person simply checking out what type of contraception you want, you plug in the different information that you would like, and then the website gives you recommendations for what would be most appropriate for based on your stated preferences. And then also there's free or at least partially covered emergency contraception, which is available over the counter. But Cristina will be going into that. I won't take up too much time for that. Next slide. So what do the worst performing countries have in common? Okay, so Armenia, Hungary, Poland. Unfortunately, we have some of the worst performing countries within the EU. So it's very much an EU problem. This also suggests it's not an issue of finances. Okay, so no country can claim to be too poor to do this. This is Europe and the European Union, so that's not an obstacle. So it's really a question of political will. So what we see is that there's no covered schemes for adults within national health systems, no special arrangements for young people or vulnerable groups, no consultations are not or insufficiently covered by the national health systems. There's no public information through online sources, no government websites which inform citizens or the people about access to contraception. And emergency contraception requires usually a prescription. So that creates a barrier to access it. Next slide. So in terms of findings, what do we have overall? So in this year's champion, but we'll be hearing from the minister herself about the developments in Luxembourg. But we have a universal contraception program that covers everybody. Okay. So I won't go more into this. We'll hear more about this. Latvia has started coverage of vulnerable groups and also coverage of girls who gave birth under the age of 19. So this is a group that would particularly benefit very well from also the most reliable types of contraception. Next slide. Oh, yeah, Lithuania. Starting coverage in the municipality of Vilnius for vulnerable groups. Spain has a new law that has yet to be implemented that will be coming along. Catalonia, a region within Spain, has made great progress and as of last year has been able to provide free long-acting contraceptives to almost the entire adult population, which would be able to benefit from this in that autonomous region, as well as a number of other measures. Next slide. Also, positive developments in Ireland, young people. Cyprus is adopting a new strategy for gender equality. So hopefully next year, we'll be able to improve the score for Cyprus. Moldova, implants have become available and their local NHS in Moldova is providing mobile youth clinics. And in Poland, we'll hear more about this, but there's some legislative developments in the pipelines. So we just have to wish a lot of good, positive vibes to Poland that these legislative developments will go well. Next slide. And then finally, in terms of information, some nice progress to report here in both Albania and North Macedonia, where there was a dearth of information. New websites have appeared, thanks to private initiatives from local civil society organizations. And in some cases, which provide good information, that type of information I mentioned earlier, where you plug in your information, what it is that you would like, and then there's recommendations that come back at you as to what would be most appropriate for you and where to find this. And in some cases, these private websites have been taken up by public authorities. So it shows that there's an institutional ownership of this issue. Next slide. And then if we go to key findings, some of the highlights, okay. So we have overall 22 countries that cover contraceptives in their national health system, including long-acting reversible contraception. We have 14 countries which cover contraceptives for young people up to about 25, sometimes a bit more. We have 44 countries, so almost all of Europe, but not quite, that cover counseling within their NHS. 10 countries provide good government websites, that's from the quiz, and 8 countries provide free emergency contraception or partially covered over the counter in pharmacies or public health facilities. Next slide. So I'll end here with the recommendations. Some very easy recommendations, just the main things to take away from this are coverage of contraceptives in the national health systems, including the most effective types, long-acting reversible contraception. Next, ensuring accessible counseling, including in the hard-to-reach areas, rural areas, etc., or hard-to-reach population groups. And then also, public authorities need to take ownership of providing information about access to contraception. Okay, and failing this, then private actors such as civil society, sometimes industry, can pick up the role where public authorities fail. But ideally, public authorities should take up this role. So next slide. So I'll end here. So I'd like to thank the expert group, thank the national partners and the experts, thank Organon for their very kind partnership and support, and also thank my colleagues for having made this possible. And also thank the members of the European Parliament for hosting us here and making this event possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neil, for the presentation. I think it's quite interesting to see that 2 of the recommendations are dependent on whether we have actual access to information and that we can hinder misinformation. And a lot of the legislation that we've done in this mandate regarding online platforms is going to be crucial there, because more and more young people will actually search for information on online platforms and not on websites. The EPF has invited representatives from 2 countries on 2 parts of the spectrum of the Atlas to comment on this year's Atlas developments. These are Luxembourg, which was heralded as the front runner and the winner of the Atlas, and Poland, which occupies the last place on the map. First, we'll hear from Luxembourg with the Minister of Health and Social Security. And she will not be able to join us in person, so we have a video message from her.
Bonjour tout le monde. Dear guests, policymakers, advocates. I am honored by the invitation to address you today on this memorable occasion, the launch of the European Contraception Policy Atlas, here at the heart of the European democracy.
Can you hear it in the room? No, let's just try and try the headphones, and then we can restart the video perhaps to see if it gets better. And then you should probably be on the floor channel.
Bonjour tout le monde. Dear guests, policymakers, advocates. I am honored by the invitation to address you today on this memorable occasion, the launch of the European Contraception Policy Atlas, here at the heart of the European democracy, the European Parliament. Let me begin by expressing my apologies for not being able to join you in person. Nevertheless, Luxembourg's commitment to the cause of access to contraceptive rights remains unchanged. Atlas ranking of the contraception policies over Euro countries unfortunately still shows a very uneven picture. But I am proud to see that over the last 7 years, my country's score rose steadily from 60.9 to 85.2. Before 2005, there was no financial support for contraceptive in Luxembourg. Local organizations like the Planning Familial and the Red Cross played a crucial role, providing certain contraceptives and condoms free of charge as part of their medical and prevention activities. In 2005, a significant breakthrough occurred with the availability of the first emergency contraceptive pill offered free of charge in pharmacies without prescription. Fast forward to 2012, when Luxembourg introduced a contraception reimbursement policy that provided 80% reimbursement to women under 25. Only certain methods were covered initially, excluding implants, IUDs, and irreversible contraception. Slowly but steadily, we continue to make progress, adding another emergency pill without a prescription and extending financial coverage to women up to 30 years old. But the groundbreaking moment in our comprehensive reproductive health policy occurred last year, when we introduced universal coverage for contraception. Since April 23, every individual registered in the National Health Insurance System can benefit from free access to all forms of contraception, regardless of their age. Although condoms are not included in reimbursement policy, they remain freely available at local associations, and new projects to promote their use are emerging. The new reimbursement policy also enhances our statistical data, giving us the opportunity to adapt preventive measures and understand contraceptive trends. Furthermore, a National Center for Effective and Sexual Health has been created, fully funded by the Ministry of Health and Social Security and supported by 3 other ministers. It remains crucial to pair reimbursement policies with enhanced information on contraceptive methods through emotional and sexual education and awareness campaigns in collaboration with frontline workers. I would like to conclude by saying that our journey shows the power of policy evolution and collaborative initiatives. Let us carry these lessons forward, united in our commitment to creating a Europe where reproductive rights are accessible to all. Congratulations to all attending countries in making reproductive health safeguarded, respected, and celebrated. Thank you for your attention.
I think it was excellent video and run through of what Luxembourg has done. Her ministry was pivotal in ensuring this message and also the results of Luxembourg. And I would like to thank the representatives from Luxembourg who have traveled to Brussels to celebrate this memorable event. Representatives from CESAS from Luxembourg, the National Reference Center for the Promotion of Emotional and Sexual Health, as well as Family Planning Luxembourg. So welcome to Brussels and thank you very much for being here. And then we go to the other side of the spectrum of the Atlas, and I want to give the floor to my colleague Robert Biedron, who's also the chair of the Women and Equality Committee here in the Parliament. Since the recent elections, all our eyes are on the possible changes with the new government. But what I hear from people in Poland is that it's not all as good as it looks like if you read the non-Polish media. So we'll hear from Robert about his thoughts on how the situation can be improved further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, it's all about the free media. I agree, it's very important factor of democracy. Thank you very much for having me once again, and congratulations to EPF for another excellent work you've done with your team and another Atlas. And happy Valentine's Day, by the way. I wish you modern, effective, and affordable access to contraception. It helps with celebrating Valentine's, isn't it? So, yeah, indeed, I'm sitting on this dancing stool again as representing the worst country on this contraception policy atlas. And again, I'm being asked, and we are being asked, why we are being the worst country in this atlas. And I would agree with you, Karen, with your introductory remark that we don't see enough progress. It's a shame. It's a shame that in 2024 we live in Europe of such inequalities, and this contraception atlas in all green. It's a shame. We live in one of the safest regions of the world, the wealthiest one, the one which could afford the modern, effective, and affordable contraception for everyone. And it's not the case. And it's difficult to explain not only Polish people, but many other people in this continent that we as MEPs, we as politicians, we've not done enough to change this situation. And I think one of the challenges we have, which is standing in front of us, is the discussion about EU competences. Why is that Polish women or women in Cyprus or in Hungary have less rights, not only in the context of contraception, but in the context of women's rights in general, that women in Luxembourg or in France? This is an absurd. And I'm giving this example very often, but let me repeat it again. We have standardized so many issues in EU. We have one standard on bananas. We have one standard on carrot. We have one standard of the charger. But we still don't have one standard on women's rights. And it's political. Of course, it's political. And when Neil was presenting the outcome of the research, he was right. There is a connection of the quality of human rights, including sexual and reproductive health and rights, with the rule of law and democracy standard. And this atlas shows it clearly. The countries like Poland, Hungary, Armenia, Turkey or Russia have an issue with rule of law and democracy, or had, like Poland, or maybe still has some. So there is a clear link between these topics. What we should ask is one standard for all, and no pyramid of standards. What we should ask is that every person living in this union has an access to the same standard wherever the person lives. It's not the case, because we also understand that in a matter of health, it's up to the member states. But come on, when we had an issue of COVID-19, we found a lot of excuses to unite, to find a common ground and cooperate. Is it against the treaties? Maybe, but it helped to save people. Why with contraception, why with access to abortion, we don't find the same common ground? It's a big question, and I think this should be one of the challenges for the next term of this House, for the including the Commission as well. I think this is a challenge for all the EU bodies. So yes, I come from Poland, and I understand my situation is uncomfortable, but with all of this saying, we have a change in Poland of the government. We have a new government. We have a government which is composed of different political actors, starting from the conservative right, through the liberals, Greens, Social Democrats, and the left. And in this government, of course, you can see different opinions. But one is sure, we are very devoted. I say we because my party is a part of that. We are devoted to human rights, including women's rights. We are devoted to bring the change also in the context of access to modern, effective, and affordable contraception. And the work has done. Probably Antonina will speak more about that, but recently, we have discussed in the Polish Parliament the issue of the access of the contraception, including the pill after, and it provoked, of course, a lot of discussion. But this will be one step forward: the access for emergency contraception, the morning after pill, the Plan B pill. It will. I just want to announce that soon it will be available without the prescription from a doctor, and the work is in progress. That means, hopefully, that for the next year Atlas, we won't be the worst. We will make some progress. The other news is that coming from the details into a more general approach, is that we, for the first time in Poland, we appointed a minister devoted for equality, responsible for women's rights, including sexual and reproductive health and rights. It's a minister from the party I represent, the Progressive Party, Katarzyna Kotula, who is for many years involved into this discussion and devoted to the change we are waiting for. So what I will take also from this meeting is the recommendations presented by Neil, and ask the minister to implement as much as possible, that we will also see the real change. The change that many women is waiting in Poland. And you know, I come from the country where we still de facto have total ban on abortion, where women were dying because of the freezing effect on doctors and medical services, which were not allowing women to terminate abortion when it was a danger to women's life. And this needs to urgently needs to change, because it's about our lives, lives of our wives, of our friends, of our mothers, of our daughters, of the ones whom we love. So for me, it's obvious that this government has obligation to bring the change, and I'd be very happy to compete with Luxembourg on that. I promise that this will be also one of the priorities which we are preparing for the FAM committee. As Karen has said, I will conclude with that. I'm chairing the Women's Rights and Gender Equality Committee. It's not a coincidence that a man is chairing it. It's also a signal for many men to be in solidarity with women on this fight. But we are preparing the priorities for the next term. And within the priorities, I'm sure access to effective, modern, and affordable contraception will be one of our priorities. Access to modern sexual education will be, including men and boys. I want to underline that, including men and boys, because we need them on the board, will be one of our priorities. This is what we as a committee, we will be also working for the next term. So thank you very much for having me. I hope this is the last intervention of any poll being the worst on this atlas. And this is our last meeting in this role of myself. Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention.
Well, it's not only about being last or first. I hope that in future years, we can move from the colors of St. Valentine's Day of red to more the colors of St. Patrick's Day, which is green, so that we can color the entire map green and yellow and not red, yellow, and orange. We now move on to our two experts from civil society. I'm going to give the floor to Cristina Puig Borras, who leads the European Consortium for Emergency Contraception. Cristina has over 20 years of expertise in the field of reproductive health and rights advocacy. And the mission of the consortium is to increase knowledge of and access to emergency contraception in Europe and globally. So Cristina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? I want to start by thanking a member of parliament, because I think he just gave us a great new logo or slogan for movement. We have standards on bananas and carrots, but we do not have standards on women's rights. It's political. I think, I'm going to make a banner out of this. Thank you so much. So, can we put on the slides, please? Well, thank you for having us here. It's a true honor. We can move on to the next one. As has been mentioned, I coordinate the European Consortium for Emergency Contraception. We are a community of practice, and our mission is to increase knowledge and access to emergency contraception. We don't think that access to emergency contraception is the magic solution to unwanted pregnancies. We don't promote one method over another, but we do believe that it should be part of the method mix offered to the population.
Can I get you to move to the
Sure.
so that you're better in the camera?
Okay. There we go. Okay, I also want to mention that all the information I'm going to share here is available on our website. So we have a database country by country with information on emergency contraception access in 47 countries. And I also want to point out that the information I will present does not include data on Iceland, Kyrgyzstan, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Montenegro, Kosovo, San Marino, Turkmenistan, and the Vatican City, because we haven't been able to find information about those countries, so keep that in mind. Next, please. And I wanted to start very quickly by just mentioning what emergency contraception is. With this word, emergency contraception or pericoital contraception, we refer to methods that can be used, contraceptive methods that can be used after sexual intercourse to reduce the risk of pregnancy. I just want you to keep in mind that there are different methods that can be used, and mostly we will be focusing on emergency contraception pills, also poorly known as the morning after pill. Next, please. I also want to take a second to just clarify once again that the use of emergency contraception pills is highly safe. It's always safer than pregnancy, childbirth, or abortion. And I would say that in terms of mental health, it's also safer than unwanted parenting. And as you can see, the WHO has always very clear that in terms of safety, there are no concerns for its use. Next, please. So I was invited to give an assessment of how access to EC is in Europe. And to do so, I'm going to refer to this scheme put forward by the World Health Organization that says that if a program that supplies information and services of contraception is based on human rights, it has to meet this criteria. It cannot discriminate anyone. It needs to be available, accessible, acceptable, of good quality. It has to facilitate informed decision-making. It has to ensure privacy and confidentiality, and needs to foresee some mechanisms for participation and accountability. I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to look only at those 4 that are highlighted in yellow. So in terms of availability, is EC equally available in Europe? We think so. There is at least one type of EC pill registered in most countries. Remember, we don't have information on a few countries, including the Vatican. And the last country that we know that introduced EC pills was Malta, only in 2016, which is very, very late compared to its EU counterparts. But so we're good there. Now, in terms of accessibility, it's where the picture is more diverse. Still, 5 countries, as it was already pointed out, require a mandatory prescription to be able to go to the pharmacy and buy EC. You know that the morning after pill works mostly by trying to delay ovulation, so it's a race against time. So having to go to a doctor, get an appointment, get to your doctor to give you a prescription to then go to the pharmacy and buy it, basically what it does, it reduces the efficacy of this method. This was very different. In 2015, we had more countries that still require a prescription, so we have moved forward. And as said, Poland probably will change soon, and the Russian Federation might also change this year, we hope. Next one. And then in most countries in Europe, EC is provided in the pharmacy, is considered a pharmacy product or provided behind the counter, and there needs to be an interaction with the pharmacies, which will entail things of informed decision-making. Only in the United Kingdom and Switzerland, to our knowledge, the consultation with the pharmacy team is mandatory and paid for. And to our knowledge, both countries are undertaking efforts to remove that mandatory consultation so that it's optional. And in the rest of the countries, from the little information we have, it varies extensively within countries and within pharmacies inside a given country. And the third modality that we find, we can move to the next, the third modality that we find is where EC pills are actually placed over the counter or on the counter and can be, just taken by the user. If she thinks she needs counseling or information, she can ask for it, but if she knows what she's doing, which is most likely what's happening, she can just take it, pay for it, and go. And this is in the Netherlands and in Sweden, in some parts of Norway, and has also been seen, this practice of placing the product on the counter has also been seen in some pharmacies in Malta. Next, please. I just want to remind quickly that the World Health Organization does recommend clearly that EC should be made available without a prescription, that it's not necessary to have this product subject to prescription because it's a self-care intervention. Next, please. Now, access also means, if something is accessible but I cannot pay for it, it's not really accessible for me. So we want to take a look at how affordable it is. In these countries that you see here, EC, to our knowledge, EC is not included in any coverage, public coverage, so it's always paid out of pocket from the user, and it's a lot of countries. We put Malta and Albania into question because there are some policies, but we don't know to what extent they've been put into place. And again, in these countries, probably EC pills can be procured in NGOs like the International Planned Parenthood Federation clinics, but it's not a policy of the government to provide free access to some population or in some circumstances. Next. This is the worst slide I have ever prepared in my life. I apologize. I've done a lot of PowerPoints, and it's the most interesting, and I don't think you can see it. But basically, on the left side, you have the prices, the range of prices of EC pills in Europe. It goes from about 5, I don't think you can see it, but for less than €5 up to more than 25. And on the top, we have, I think it's Albania, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and it makes sense, right? And in the bottom, we have Norway, the United Kingdom, Ireland. This is when it's procured out of pocket without any health insurance behind us. So it makes sense, right, that it's cheaper in Albania than in Norway. But then on the right side, we took a look at what is the cost of EC as a proportion of the average monthly salary in one country. And we see that on the green, in the top part, it's all EU countries plus Israel, Norway, and the UK, where women basically have to spend less than 1% of their income, monthly income, on average, to buy EC. And in the bottom, women have to spend more than 3% of their average income, monthly income. And I cannot read the countries from here, but I think it's Belarus, Bosnia-Herzegovina. It's basically all lower income countries. So this is something to which I would pay attention because it's not cheap for anyone, but it's especially expensive for countries with lower GDP. Next, please. Then we have seen this already. Some countries have been very bold, and Ireland, Scotland and Wales, Belgium, France, and Luxembourg, and they're making EC available free of cost, usually to card holders, directly at the pharmacy. So you are overcoming the cost barrier directly at the spot where people tend to go to seek for EC more often, more than in public health services. Next, please. We saw also that the criteria for a human rights-based family planning program is that it doesn't discriminate. In some countries, discrimination is still reported, especially in Malta, in Spain, and in Italy. It has been reported that some pharmacies just refuse to dispense EC. So this is usually to young people, in some cases to trans men have been reported as well. So basically, some people are being discriminated, and this has not been reached yet. Next one, please. And then informed decision-making. A good information and conception program helps us choose what's best for us. As mentioned before, there are choices nowadays on postcoital contraception, and it's not clear to what extent the information needed for make this decision is provided systematically to all women in all pharmacies in all Europe. And there is not that much data on that, but the one we have suggests that clearly there is a lot of variation. So again, this is a key component of any program that wants to be rights-based. Next, please. And to address that, last year we worked together with the International Federation of OBGYNs, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, the European Society of Contraception, whose vice president is here with us today, to put forward a consensus, a minimum agreement of how the interaction should be with a woman who's procuring EC at a pharmacy, so it's rights-based, so it helps us make an informed decision and based on updated evidence as well. So this is a tool that is available to MPs, to anybody who's doing advocacy in their countries to improve the quality of the counseling provided on EC in pharmacies. And I'm happy to report that it has been endorsed by the International Federation of Pharmacies because they are the ones who have a key role in that. I'm almost done. Next one, please. Yeah, so to summarize, EC is very available. It's a very safe contraceptive method. It's widely available in Europe, but it's not equally accessible. It's still not offered free of cost or covered by some insurance in almost half of our region. The cost of EC pills is relatively higher in lower income countries. I think this is very important. Discrimination is still happening in some countries and women are denied arbitrarily access to EC. And there is a choice to be made in postcoital contraception. Now we have choices, different pills and different other methods, and we are not systematically informed about these choices. So there is a lot of work to do. Next, please. So that's it. Please be in touch. If any MP wants to take on the fight for EC, we're here for them. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
And now I'm going to welcome Antonina to move in a little bit so that you're in the camera very nicely. So take one seat in. And she is currently the National Advocacy Coordinator of the Foundation for Women and Family Planning in Poland, and also coordinates the ASTRA Network, which is the Central and Eastern European Network for Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights. Before I give you the floor, I'm just going to highlight that we will have to be out of the room 5 minutes to 3. So think about already a quick, snappy question to our two experts for the Q&A. But then I will ask you to not to pull out a network borrowed from the worst form of contraception, pull out and pray. So get out of the room and do the talking with everybody in the room, outside of the room once we're done. So Antonina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. I was honored to join the expert group for the first time. I used to comment on the results. Now I could actually participate in the preparation, which was a very exciting process. But then again, since I'm coming from Poland, it was also a very depressing process, to be honest. Robert mentioned the fact that we were working on revoking the necessity to have the prescription for the morning after pill, and that is true. The bill currently sits in a parliamentary committee, and we're expecting it to come to life very soon. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the beginning of the bigger problem that Poland is facing. But we keep talking, understandably, we keep talking about human rights, focusing on the part of rights rather than the part of human. We lack human stories and all that data and all that percentage. And I come as a representative of the civil society. We are the oldest Polish organization working for SRHR in Poland. We are currently over 30 years old. We've been fighting for access to abortion, contraceptives for a very long time in Poland, almost since the fall of communism in the country. And I have to tell you that access to contraceptives, it's also about human stories. It's not only about data, policies, statistics, but it's about the daily lives of ourselves, of our friends, of our colleagues, of the people who may fall pregnant when they don't want to fall pregnant, and then living in a country that really is, and I was never afraid to say that out loud, and I will always say that out loud, as long as Poland does not change the policy about abortion. Poland is a country that tortures its citizens with the current anti-abortion law. We have the right to say that. We have several statements from the UN and several other international bodies that what is currently happening in Poland, the fact that the country is forcing people to carry malformed pregnancies to term, can be classified as inhuman treatment and torture. So when you live in a country that does not provide access to contraceptives, that does not provide access to abortion, that you live in fear constantly. It's terrifying to be a woman in Poland. One of the greatest compliments I got from a friend of mine was that she is extremely grateful for knowing me because she's not that afraid, and actually her sex life is better off the fact that she knows that I am there to help her if something happens. But it's about knowing someone. It's about stories, and the most drastic, the most difficult and heartbreaking moment of this work was first when the Constitutional Tribunal's ban on abortion came to life. And the second moment that relates specifically to contraceptives as well, was the outbreak of the war in Ukraine and the number of people, war rape survivors, coming to a country that leaves them stranded with no help, with no access, and all that burden was put on the civil society and on NGOs like ours. We were the ones who provided psychological help. We were the ones who provided access to contraceptives for people who've been through hell. And that's mostly because of the policies, of the politics, and on the universal for CEE region, for Central and Eastern Europe, hate for women. And let's be frank about that. Because as it was mentioned before, can I have the slide, please, with the map? Thank you. As it was mentioned before, as you can see, there is a very clear division between Western and Eastern Europe. And that's no coincidence, because the state of women's rights is actually a lakmus paper for the state of democracy. Because when you question part of the society's right to exist and to decide about themselves, then you question the democratic values themselves. So what we are seeing is the worse the result in the Contraceptive Atlas, the more restrictive anti-abortion laws, the worse the state of democracy in the country. There was a change in Poland, that's true, with the change of the government. But as a civil society representatives, we are not the ones to let our guard down. because there is still work to be done. This was not the end of the fight. This was the beginning of another chapter of the fight. Because yes, definitely, we now have people supporting us and sharing some ideas about how to protect women's rights in Poland. But at the same time, we can't stop on promises. We need actual, very palpable political changes. We need new laws, we need new bills, we need policies. And that's why it is so promising to have the bill in the parliament. But let me be absolutely clear, this is not enough. This is the bare minimum that is supposed to happen. And it is something to be celebrated, of course, because it's been really depressing to see Poland ranked the last all these years, every year. But it's still not enough to see the basics happen and treat them as something that's extremely groundbreaking. And therefore, we asked for a simulation to be prepared with our friends and colleagues at the EPF. Could I have another slide, please? Yes, and so we proposed as Federa to prepare this kind of a simulation, how it was in 2023, and you can see the percentages over there, and how it could be if the policymakers, if the stakeholders actually listened to civil society organizations and come to agreement to move forward with policies that would actually respond to the needs on the ground, because we are the ones, civil society are the ones who actually see the human part in human rights. We know the stories, we know the needs, we know how it should be created. And therefore, these solutions, these are, again, basic starting points. It's not the end of the fight, it's the beginning. But as you can see, if Poland manages to partially cover contraceptives by the National Healthcare Fund in a way that actually responds to their needs, that's going to be a win. If we get full coverage for young women in reproductive age, that's going to be a huge win. And it's actually a very interesting discussion in Poland right now, because due to the fact that the bill about emergency contraception is in the parliament, there was a huge discussion about when should it actually be available, when you turn 18 or when you reach the age of consent. So in case of Poland, 15. But that would lead to a situation when people in the age of 15, 16, 17 can access emergency contraception without the prescription, but at the same time, they would still need a parental consent. Because in Poland, you cannot legally go to a doctor's by yourself if you're under 18 without the knowledge and written consent of your parents. And therefore, we have this huge discussion about how do we reshape this whole system? Because as you can see, full coverage for young, vulnerable groups, it sounds amazing, but it's just a starting point of how to reshape the whole healthcare system. Therefore, we need to also revoke the parental consent for contraception, because this is about the right to privacy and the right to health. And if we decide that someone is responsible enough and adult enough to have sex, then we also have to trust them that they're also responsible enough to protect themselves when it comes to their sexual life. We need to improve accessibility of LARCs, which are not really funded, they are not absolutely not funded by the state at the time. You can legally and in a refunded way put in and put out an IUD, but you have to pay for the device yourself. We need that to be covered by the state as well. Last but not least, emergency contraception over the counter, just as it is in most European countries, as Cristina just told us. And we are really hoping to see these changes come to life. But this is only the beginning. This is the bare minimum, which, as you can see, can I have the next slide, please? Would lead to a new green island appearing on the map. And we were just discussing this with Neil before our event started, that it's just so nicer on the eyes, right? If you look at it, it's lighter and the green is so nice. So these postulates that we have, these points, these requests that we have to the state wouldn't even put us, as Poland, wouldn't put us in the front runners. This is just what the Atlas sees as good. That's not excellence. That's bare minimum. That's what we need. That's what needs to be recognized. But what the discussion about emergency contraceptive in Poland showed us now is that we need to educate the stakeholders. It was one of the most surprising moments in my career, to be honest, when members of Polish Parliament started coming to Federa and asking, well, is that true that you can terminate a pregnancy with pills? And that was a moment of, my goodness, where were you for the past 5 years? Like, did you even live in this country? Like, did you, attend the protest? Do you know anything about what's going on? And that's the fact. And if we have policymakers who have to vote and make these policies, they have to know what they're deciding on. So what we have to do is stand up for our own rights. And actually, I know it may be a bit tiring to just keep sitting and listening to talking heads and do relatively not a lot when it comes to events like this. So I would like everyone who can to stand up. And I want to encourage you to actually stand up. Thank you. Just as you will be standing up for your rights, put your hands on your hips like that and stand firmly on the ground. And that's a position that was actually scientifically proven to boost your self-confidence. So stand like that, feel the ground, feel what is happening around you, and just somewhere around your tummy, at some point, you should start to feel the power that, yes, I can stand straight. Like, look at the sky if you want to. You can do it. You can stand up for yourself. So just take that feeling home, go to your stakeholders, go to the policymakers, and tell them with all that feeling that you feel inside your body, yes, I know what needs to be done. I know the Contraceptive Atlas. I know the recommendation of civil society. Get in touch with the people on the ground, get the human part to human rights. And we will win this fight. And Poland will be the green island, and we will make Contraception Atlas a huge St. Patrick's Day celebration, because it will at some point all be green. So thank you so much. And hopefully I will be seeing you next year as a representative of the not worst case scenario when it comes to contraception in Poland. We are doing our best to fix the situation. And I want you to remember that you have that power inside you. Just listen to the stories, listen to the people, and bring it out there with that feeling that you have, with the knowledge that you have, with the expertise. Because people in this room, we are the experts. We know how it's supposed to be done. So get the policymakers to do it. Thank you.
The Q&A is going to happen outside of the room after the closing remarks. I encourage all of you to network and build liaisons with each other to advocate for the human and human rights. And now I have the pleasure of inviting my colleague Malin Björk to provide us with closing remarks.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you to all of you, and not least to EPF and Neil and your team for, I would say, letting us host this every year, because it's such an important moment to take stock and to, gather and to get the expertise in the room. And I think the closing remarks, I, to some extent, Antonina, you already made those, I think, in a way that it's difficult to add anything useful. But I think that your call to policymakers is maybe the thing that I will pick up on, and the call that EPF and others are doing here. Because Karen and I are gladly hosting this. You have seen Robert Biedron, chair of the Gender Equality Committee. I have my colleague and one of the co-chairs of the LGBT Intergroup, Mark Angel, here in the room also. And we are a big group and a big majority voting on these issues. And we have worked hard to get there, because when I took place in the European Parliament 2014, we didn't have a majority. We lost some votes, some important votes on sexual and reproductive health and rights, including contraception, sexuality education, and abortion care. We are not losing those votes anymore. I'm not saying that we are changing the world, but we decided not to lose one single of those votes. And we have worked consciously towards that, building partnerships between political parties, between different political groupings, with civil society, making sure that when things happen, when really bad things happen in Poland, such as the Constitutional Court ruling, we immediately said, we are together in this. We will make sure that nobody forgets what's happening in Poland. So when they wanted to discuss democracy and rule of law, and they told me, this is not the place to raise this issue about, you know, that, no. So this is exactly the place to raise the issue of the lack of access to abortion care for Polish women. So this is the kind of promises we made to each other and that we will continue to carry forward. And we do that together with you, because only then we can make a difference. But if we do that, if we do it together, I think we can move mountains. So we look forward to do that together with you in Poland, in other places where we do need to change things. I also want to say just a few words about as you all know here in the room, the connection between, and it has been mentioned here a few times also, between the access to contraception, the access to comprehensive sexuality education, the access to abortion care, and the broader SRHR agenda. And we all have commitments to advance, you know, that whole agenda together. Just a little comment also on access, because access is, you know, there's not only what you put in law. If you put in law that you have access to safe and legal abortion, or safe, you know, contraception, that it's legal. Well, if it's not affordable, if it's not available where you live, if it's excluded to some groups of women, undocumented women, or other groups of women, then it is not good enough. And we, as, you know, defenders of these rights at European level or at national level or local level, you know, we're not done with the job until all women are included in terms of access to these rights. So that would be my final call. I think we have a big job to do still, but we do look forward to greening the Poland on the map, and most certainly doing it together with all of you. So a big thank you to my MEP colleagues, but most of all to all the activists and you know, actors and fighters out there. Thank you.